Hello guys. So in this session we are going to learn how to automate S3 file processing with Python and Lambda. So let's start. So first of all, here I mention a prerequisite. So first of all, we need active AWS account. We need permissions for creating role, IAM role and Lambda, and basic understanding of Python and AWS console. Okay. So that's the prerequisites that we need to automate S3 file processing with Python and Lambda. Okay, so let's start. So as you can see, first of all, here the first step is we need to create a AWS S3 bucket. So from AWS management console, navigate to S3, that's simple storage services. Okay, so this bucket will serve as our data landing zone. So let's click on create bucket. Okay, so let's go to the bucket. So as you can see, there's the Amazon S3 bucket dashboard. So we need to create a S3 bucket, right? So click on create bucket. And here we need to create a bucket. So here choose general purpose and enter your bucket name. So my bucket name will be here, my Python AWS Lambda bucket. If you want to another name, then you can give another name. And keep as it is. Okay, keep the settings default as it is. And now click on create bucket. So as you can see, our bucket is successfully created. As you can see, my Python AWS Lambda bucket, the region and the creation date and timing. So let's inside the bucket. So now as you can see, as of now, you don't have any objects in this bucket. That means our bucket is empty. Okay. So the next step is we need to create a file. As you can see here, let's create a sample CSV file that we will use for testing. So let's open any plain text editor or notepad, or you can open VS Code, and let's add this content. So as you can see here, I have successfully created file with the name employee details.csv, and that's the data. Okay, so here let's save this file and let's upload this file in our S3 bucket here. Okay, so click on upload, add files, and the file name is here employee details, right? Open, select, and click on upload. As you can see, upload successful. You can see the type CSV, size, and status is succeed. Okay, that means we have successfully uploaded this file into this destination S3 MyPython AWS Lambda bucket. Okay, it's done. Then now the next step is here, creating IAM role for Lambda in AWS. Okay, so here we need to create IAM role for Lambda. So every AWS service need permission to interact with other services. Our Lambda function will need permission to create from S3 and to write logs to CloudWatch. Okay. So first of all here, we have successfully logged into our AWS management console, and let's navigate to IAM, that identity and access management. So as you can see, this is the IAM dashboard, and here I have go to the roles. So let's create a roles. Click on roles. After that, as you can see here, then let's create a role, right? Okay. And here, let's create a role. So choose AWS services, use cases, Lambda, then click on next. Here we need to add two permissions. Which permissions? First permission is AWS Lambda basic execution role that grant permission for Lambda to write logs to CloudWatch. So that's why we need to add this permission into this role. So let's click on it, select. And the next one is Amazon S3 read-only access. This permission grants read-only access to S3 bucket. Select and click on next. Now, after that, let's enter the name for role. So my role name will be Lambda S3 trigger role. Description is optional. If you want to change, then you can change. And the permission, you can see added permissions, think that S3 read policy and AWS Lambda basic execution role. Now click on create role. As you can see, our role successfully created. You can see here, right? Lambda S3 trigger role. Okay. Now, after that, it's successfully created. Now the next step is let's create the AWS Lambda function with S3 triggers. Now we need to create Lambda function. Okay. So this is where we set up the serviceless functions that will execute our Python code. And from AWS console management, so let's navigate Lambda. So let's search Lambda here. As you can see, the dashboard of Lambda, AWS Lambda lets you run code without thinking about services. So let's click on create function. So here, as you can see, first of all, here, create function. So let's configure. So our function name will be Lambda S3 trigger. So let's enter the name S3 trigger. And here I'm going to select Python 3.30 and keep as it is. And execution role, create and use an existing role. And here that our role that we have created, I am role, right? Okay. Now let's check for once. Okay. And click on create function. Okay. Our function successfully create. You can say successfully created a function Lambda S3 trigger, and you can now change its code and configuration to invoke your function with the test event and choose test. Okay, it's done, right? Now the next step is once the Lambda function is created, you will see its overview page. So let's click on add trigger function. So we need to add trigger configuration. Okay, so click on add trigger. First of all, here choose S3 bucket. You can see S3 and enter the bucket name. So my bucket name will be my bucket name my Python AWS Lambda bucket. As you can see, the bucket. You can see bucket name, our bucket name my Python AWS Lambda bucket, right? Okay. Then after that, event type. So here I'm going to choose put event. You can see I'm going to select put event. So that's why I'm going to remove this. Okay. So here I'm going to not fill any prefix because in this my bucket there is no image. In this my bucket there is only one file with the type is .csv file. So that's why I'm going to use suffix. The suffix is .csv. Click on acknowledgement. As you can see, a suffix and acknowledgement, right? Okay. And now click on add. As you can see, the trigger my Python AWS Lambda bucket was successfully added to the function Lambda S3 trigger, and the function is now receiving event from the trigger. Okay, it's done. Okay, now the next step is let's update the Lambda code with Python script. Okay. So this is the Python code that will read and process your CSV data. So let's open your Lambda S3 trigger function in the Lambda console and navigate to the code tab. Okay. So first of all, let's go to the code. So let's go to the code. Okay. So as you can see in this code, there's the Lambda function code right here, event and so on. So here we need to replace this R code. So my code is here, you can see. So I'm going to copy the code and paste here. Okay. Okay. So I'm okay. So as you can see, replace the default code with the following Python script. And so it's important. So let's click on deploy button to save and deploy your changes. Okay. Now let's click on deploy here. As you can see, it's updating the function, successfully update the function lambda S3 trigger. Okay. Then after that, now the next step is let's test the lambda function. Okay. So before we enable full functionality, let's manually test our code. So in Lambda console, let's click on test button. You can see the test button. So let's click on it. So you select create a new test event. And here you need to enter a test event. So my test event name will be S3 Python test. And here keep it private. And the template is here. Let's choose S3 put. Right, you can see the template is choose S3 put. Okay. Then after that, in the test event JSON, replace the placeholder bucket name, for example, bucket, and the object key with your S3 bucket name. So my bucket name is my Python AWS Lambda bucket. Okay. So here you can see, as you can see in bucket, example bucket here, I'm going to replace with my bucket name. And then here also example bucket. And then after that, the next is that my file name, that employee details.csv, and the file name is we need to enter here. Okay. So as you can see the changes, first of all here, we need to enter our bucket name. Okay. And then after that, we need to enter the file name that we have successfully stored in our S3 bucket. Okay. So as you can see the details, right? As you can see the changes. Okay. So let's check for once. And now click on test button. So first of all, click on save. And now click on test button. After that, you will have error. Let's check. Let's scroll down. And as you can see here, the status is fail, test event type, and the response is unable to import module, lambda function, and runtime, and so on the details. And you can see the warning, and so on the details. Why? Let's check. So as you can see, you will observe an error in the execution result and function logs similar to this module not found error, right? No module name pandas, and this is the expected because pandas library is not natively available in the default lambda runtime environment. So to resolve this module not found error, we need to attach a lambda layer containing the pandas library. So how to? So let's go to this lambda and let's scroll down, click on add layer. Choose AWS layer, and here we need to choose this AWS SDK Pandas Python 3.3. Let's check for once. Okay. And let's select a version. Version is 3. And click on add. Successfully added. After that, you can see R is added. Now the pandas layer is attached. So let's run the test again. Okay, so let's go to the your Lambda tab, then click on test button and run the S3 test event again. Let's check on test. And as you can see, output is execution and our output is ready. You can see the status is succeed. The test event name, that are our bucket name, S3 Python test event, sorry, our event name, right? And you can see Lambda function executed successfully and function logs, and you can see the details that we have added in this .csv file, that employee name, department, salary, and so on. You can see employee ID, name, department, salary, and it's three number of data. You can see, right? The first three rows, you can see the head first three rows. You can see the details of it, right? You can see here the memory size 128 MB, max memory use 124 MB, and duration and so on the details, right? Right. So the status is execution result, should changes the succeed and the function logs, and you can see, right? Okay. Now the next step is, let's trigger Lambda with real S3 upload. Okay. So let's try. So with our Lambda function now fully operational, so let's see the action by uploading a new file to S3. So let's create another file. So as you can see, here I have successfully created another file with the name employee details 1.csv. You can see name, ID, and cities. Okay. Now let's navigate to the S3 bucket, AWS console, and let's upload. So let's upload. And here is file employee details. As you can see, now we have two files. Okay. After that, let's verify execution in CloudWatch logs. So Lambda function should have executed automatically after the upload. So to see its output from your Lambda function, let's overview the page. Click on the Lambda function, should have execute. Click on the Lambda function and the monitor tab, and click on the view CloudWatch logs button. Okay. So let's go to the Lambda function. Go to the monitor and click on view CloudWatch logs. So as you can see, the our Lambda function is Lambda S3 trigger, and you can see the logs it just created. So click on it, and you can see the details. Successfully read CSV data, head first three rows, processing the file name, employee details 1.csv from bucket name, and the name, ID, name, cities, and end request, and so on the details about our employee details 1.csv file. Right, so this will take you the CloudWatch logs console. Right, so inside the log stream, you will find the print statement from your Lambda function, including the head 3, that means first three rows, output from the data from employees detail.1.csv. Right, that's it. So it's done. So in this session, we have learned how to automate S3 file processing with Python and Lambda. So thank you for watching, and I hope you understand.